Hello and welcome. I lived in the UK for 7 years, or to be more specific, England. And it's been about 6 months since I left, so I thought it's about time we talk about the breakup. So I am going to structure things in this video so it won't just be one huge rambling. And so we will start with why I went to the UK in the first place, and then we're going to move through the different points that made me want to leave. Now, why did I go to the UK? It's quite simple, actually. I left Bulgaria, my home country, when I was about 22 because I was really disappointed with my university degree. I actually dropped out of uni here and then I enrolled at a UK university. Also, to be fair, there is this, I wouldn't call it a trend, I wouldn't call it a movement, but it's just something that happens a lot in Bulgaria, and is that young people tend to go abroad and try to find better opportunities for themselves. And I was one of those people, right? I wanted to see the world. I wanted to kind of get out of my little comfortable bubble here in Bulgaria, because back home, I knew that I could always fall back on my parents. If I snapped my fingers, I would be able to get a job. Everything was just so familiar. And at one point, that kind of started getting on my nerves, and I really wanted to challenge myself. And I just wanted to see and experience more, right? I wanted to go on an adventure.
I'm going on an adventure!
Don't get me wrong, despite all the negative things that I'm going to talk about the UK, I did love my time in the UK. I think it built me into a better person. I learned a lot, and I am extremely grateful that I had the opportunity to live in the UK, to study in the UK, to build the friendships that I built in the UK. So I can't say that everything I experienced was bad. Most of it, I would say 80% of it, was absolutely lovely. But those 20% of not good stuff are in specific areas that kind of build up and build up and build up. And then boom, the realization hits that this is not a country that I want to build a family in, that I want to build a future in. And it makes me kind of sad, because in my first few years in the UK, I could definitely see myself building a stable and beautiful life there. But alas, that is not the case. So here we are. So we will start with the elephant in the room, which is life in London. Because to be completely honest, it's London that made me give up on living in the UK. First of all, and there's no escaping this, it's way too loud with way too many people, way too chaotic. And of course, when you're in a place like that and the infrastructure is simply not built to handle that many people, and the police can't handle that many people, and the NHS can't handle that many people, and so on and so forth, it just becomes exhausting. The public transport, horrible. The tube, the buses, the DOR, overcrowded, dirty, slow, expensive, and by expensive, keep in mind, London has the most expensive public transport in the world, which is insane to me. Because as I said, it's overcrowded, it's dirty, it's slow, and the tube is horrendously loud and hot.
Okay, so this is the Victoria line heading towards Stockwell, and it's absolutely deafening.
And because the environment for commuting is so bad, and because the transport itself is so bad, honestly, let's not lie to ourselves here. But if you have a friend that lives on the other side of London from you, you will probably see them once or twice per year, because the commute is just, it's not worth it. Now, London really has everything you might want, right? It has amazing restaurants with a variety of different cuisines. It has lots of events, festivals, museums, galleries, parks, shops, musicals, theaters, just all sorts of entertainment. But here's the thing. What is the point of having them when financially it's a real struggle to budget them in. Like, there's an abundance of so many things to do and places to go, but then realistically, on an average salary, if you're also trying to save money for, I don't know, try and buy your own house or an apartment or whatever, to try and build a family, to save money to have an emergency fund, or to go and travel, or in my case, to go and see my family once or twice a year. Where are you gonna fit the entertainment part? Like, where are you gonna fit all of these really cool and nice things to do that are going to energize you and make it all kind of worthwhile at the end of the day when you stop working and it's time for you to relax? What's the point of having all of these options when an average person is going to struggle to fit them in? Is going to struggle to afford them. And yes, that is a first world problem, and what I'm going to say now is also a first world problem. But I couldn't even imagine going to a hairdresser in London or just doing my nails in London, because all of the beauty stuff is ridiculously expensive. I don't understand why it's so expensive, but every time I went back to Bulgaria, that's when I did my haircuts. And speaking of hair and beauty stuff, the water quality is horrible because the water is so hard, and my skin, personally, is not used, and it never got used to hard water, because where I come from, water is soft. And since my first day of moving to the UK up until my last day, every single time I showered, and I'm not kidding, every single time I showered, I had these dry red patches over here, like this would just get dry and red and it would hurt. And I had to moisturize like crazy. Moisturize me. And my scalp would also hurt. Sorry, to me, this is not normal. My body was apparently just rejecting the water in the UK. Like, maybe that's a signal I should have listened to earlier on and just left earlier, but my body was not handling it well. Also, this is not really about London per se, but train tickets are ridiculously expensive. Like, how come a round trip to somewhere that's like a 2-hour train ride away from London is like £60? What? It kind of feels like they're trying to keep you in one place so you don't travel across the country, which doesn't really make sense to me. And I'm saying this as someone who has lived in Bulgaria, but also someone who has lived in Japan, and I just have to compare, right? I can't not compare. And the train prices here and the train prices in Japan give you so much freedom to travel and explore, to just kind of hop on the train during the weekend and go somewhere for a few hours, like see something else, see something new, appreciate the country that you live in. And yes, while trains in Bulgaria are a little bit sus, you know, they aren't that nice. But trains in Japan are so flipping nice, and they come on time, and they're clean, and they are no way in hell that expensive. I am ranting a lot, aren't I? I do miss the parks and the architecture and the bookstores. But that's about it. We are gonna move on to some more serious stuff, right? Enough of just the casual ranting about little minor things. Let's talk about crime. So I lived in London together with my boyfriend and my mom for 2 years. The rest of my time, so my first 3 years I spent in Canterbury, and then the other 2 years I spent, is my math mathing? Yes, okay, so my other 2 years I spent in a little village in the Norfolk area. But my last 2 years were in London with my mom and my boyfriend. Now within those 2 years, I repeat, 2 years, my boyfriend had 2 people pull a knife on him and one a rock. Yes, you heard me, a rock. The first time the knife thing happened, he was waiting at the bus stop at Green Park. It was a little bit after midnight, he was coming home from work, and he was smoking a cigarette. And then some dude goes up to him and asks him for a cigarette, and my boyfriend tells him, "Sorry bro, this is my last one." And that dude pulls out a knife over a cigarette. And that is central London. Okay. Now, thankfully, my boyfriend can handle himself. So nothing happened. As far as I remember, he kind of pushed the knife away, and then the dude ran. So, oh good. But then another time he was going to work in the morning, walking along the Thames in Fulham, which is supposed to be one of the safer neighborhoods. So he's walking along the Thames, and then another dude just kind of takes a knife and starts walking towards him, apparently to rob him. And thankfully, again, the dude ended up running away, so clear on that. But what is going on? And then the rock thing happened at the bus stop at Fulham Broadway. Again, in the morning when he was going to work, and a dude took out a rock and put it in a sock and spun it around at him for some time. Apparently that dude was insane. I mean, he was insane, obviously. And then tried to get on the bus after him. And the bus driver didn't want to, close the doors and drive with that person on the bus. So my boyfriend ended up pushing him off the bus. Then the bus went, and that was it. But can you imagine? Can you imagine? I can't. I don't want to. Also, one of his colleagues got stabbed in the leg when he was coming back from shopping, again in broad daylight.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
And on another note, within my first month of living in the UK, I gave up on wearing skirts and shorts and dresses because of all the verbal sexual harassment. I did not feel safe. I have never felt so unsafe as a woman as I have felt unsafe in the UK, and specifically London. The sun goes down, I go home. It might be 8 p.m. on a work day at a busy time, but my boyfriend is still going to come and get me from the tube station so we can walk home alone. And yes, I know that there are some people who are going to say that this is over-exaggeration, that I'm taking this way too seriously. I don't know, that I should just kind of accept those things as one-offs and carry on, but I can't, okay? I am 5'2". I can't protect myself. And I am also a scaredy cat. I know I'm a scaredy cat. But from all of the experiences with obnoxious men that I've had in the UK, I no longer want to take risks. I no longer want to be subject to all of that. And I would rather just go somewhere where it's safe. Or at least safer. And that's the thing, that neither I nor my boyfriend nor my mom felt okay just walking around London without constantly being on guard and just kind of observing the people around you and assessing if people are threats. And not just because of the knife crimes and sexual harassment, but also because of phone snatching. Seriously? Phone snatching? Like, I can't even have my phone in my hand normally outside to look at a map, to look at the GPS, to look at the time, and I have to think about being closer to a building and then turning towards a building so I'm not facing the street in case someone might snatch my phone. Absolutely not. This is not an environment I want to live in, and it is not an environment I want to raise a kid. And now we are briefly going to touch upon the NHS and how unreliable it is. There are millions of people on the waiting list. Millions. Like, sometimes for just a basic GP appointment, you would have to wait for like weeks. I mean, at this point, I might just like lay down and die. And also dentists. The accessibility to NHS dentists is pretty much non-existent. Okay, it's like you have to be signed up to a dentist from the moment you're born. So again, this is a story from my boyfriend. So he kind of starts having a toothache, right? And a friend recommends a dental clinic that works with NHS, kind of. Because apparently when he went there, they pick and choose what services will be covered by the NHS and what would not be covered. And what he needed was a root canal treatment. But apparently that clinic did not cover root canal treatment, and they wanted £700 for one tooth, for one root canal treatment, okay? £700. So we hear that and we think, no way, we can't find any other dentist. So our only option is to book a flight to Bulgaria so he can come over here and get his tooth fixed and then fly back to the UK. And it still is cheaper than going to that dentist appointment. And I don't just mean by like £100. No, I mean by like £400. So we do that. We book his flight. And then 1 week before his flight, unfortunately, hopes and prayers did not work. And he starts being in extreme pain. Like extreme pain. And then he starts swelling up. And that happens at night. And then in the morning, he's so swollen. We end up calling 111. And they did manage to book us an emergency dentist appointment at 4 p.m. Emergency. About an hour away from where we live. But he goes there. And the dentist looks at him and says, oh, that's a beautiful infection. Gives him antibiotics. And then tells him that after he's done taking the antibiotics, which will be in a week, he has to go and find himself a dentist because they can't help him and they won't treat him. Thankfully, he went back to Bulgaria and got his tooth done. But, yeah. So no, I'm sorry, it's just extremely unreliable. It doesn't make me feel safe. I mean, if something happens, if I need an emergency service, even if I don't need an emergency service, even if I don't know, if I'm having some symptoms that I need to be diagnosed and I have to wait for months for that diagnosis, no, not doing that. In Bulgaria, here, yes, we are also underfunded, but you can go to a doctor in the same day, okay? You start having symptoms, you're not feeling okay, you can go get checked up the same day. Enough said. I didn't think I was going to be so passionate about this, but here we are. It's time to talk about work. So in my mom's case, she was stuck working jobs that were below her skill level and below her education, below her work experience, because she didn't speak fluent English. Don't misunderstand. She can speak and understand English quite well, but she is not fluent enough for, let's say, an office job or a managerial role. Yeah? So for the first few years, she was okay with working the lower level jobs. But then at some point, it started getting a bit much. Not the work itself, but the treatment she was receiving from the people she worked with. And I'm not just talking about one workplace. I'm talking consistently in different workplaces. It was kind of the same attitude. And by that I mean that she has a master's in psychology. She has lots of work experience. Back home, she used to be an expert in her field. But then in the UK, you had like 20-something people with no education, with no higher education, dismiss her or talk down to her because she wasn't fluent in English. And at some point that gets too much. And I think I can remember exactly when it got too much. And it's when she was working as a care assistant at a care home. And her boss was trying to push her to get a level 3 diploma so she can get a higher position in the care home. Because apparently, they have completely ignored, maybe obviously forgotten, that she actually has a a level 6? Is it a level 6 or a level 7? Yeah, she has a level 7 diploma. She has a master's degree. She has a bachelor's and a master's. What are you on about? And her boss was giving her a lecture about how important education is and that she should go and study and sit and get the level 3 diploma. Excuse me? And before you go on and say that maybe it's not accepted in the UK, it is accepted. It is. Anyway, that was about my mom. Now, in my boyfriend's case, it was the work culture that was really not a right fit for him. And by that, I mean that he is not the type of person who is okay with tiptoeing around other people, at work specifically, about being careful what he says and how he says it and to who he says it. He really doesn't like having to carefully choose his words, so he doesn't just so happen to offend someone. And this constant pressure of having to hold back really started affecting him. Not in a good way, you know? Because he had to always pretend to be someone he's not. And I'm not saying that he always has something bad to say or that he's rude or that he's going to offend someone on purpose or whatever. It's mostly about the way we here in Bulgaria communicate, how open we are in our communication, how if we have something to say, we will say it, especially if it's something that's affecting our work. We will say it so we can get to the bottom of the problem and then we will get the things done and that will be it. If there's personal problems, we will talk them out. And none of those things will really threaten our positions at work. That's just generally how it is. But in the UK, you just kind of have to always navigate, right? And you have to be extremely fluid. And honestly, it's kind of snakish. You always have to be like very... I don't know, I'm okay with it, but Daniel really was not. Also, getting work in the field that he wanted was excessively hard, and it ended up just not being worth the money. While here in Bulgaria, he got a well-paying job as a welder with a snap of the fingers. And I'm not saying connections, I'm saying he kept going to interview, and they wanted him everywhere. And he just had to choose the best one. Simple as that. Like both him and I, we got jobs within our first 2 months of being back in Bulgaria. In my case with the work stuff, I realized that my dream of burning the midnight oil at a city law firm was really no longer something I wanted. Because I'm at a stage in my life where, first of all, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted of studying, of networking, of trying to do this and that and all of these like extracurricular stuff and just add more stuff to my CV so I can stand out and go to these events and go to these workshops and go to open days and send application after application and then get rejections for training contracts with law firms and then do it again and again and again and again until it works out. And you know, I'm turning 30. I no longer want to do that, okay? At this point, I want to live a more balanced life. I want to focus on spending more time with my family and with my friends and build a family in the next few years. I don't want to keep hustling. And if you want to build a career in the city, you have to keep hustling. And so when I realized that I no longer want that I no longer want to be a lawyer in the UK, there really was just no point in me staying there. Also, average UK salaries used to look very attractive to me before I actually, left uni and started living alone. And I mean, not alone, but with my boyfriend and my mom. And I kind of, went face to face with having to budget. I mean, I was budgeting at uni, right? But the expenses you have at uni are honestly completely different from the expenses you have when, living in a city. Especially when then you have to start thinking about buying a home eventually and building a family. And I ended up doing the maths, and it turns out that financially, it makes a lot more sense to be back in Bulgaria than to live in the UK. And that's the other thing. In the UK, we had to constantly think about savings and staying on top of our budget. And if we wanted to spoil ourselves by, let's say, going for, I don't know, a dinner out or buying some new clothes, then we would feel guilty, which is not okay. It's not okay to feel guilty that you're not saving enough, that you're buying something that you need, or that you just kind of need to go out one night and not think about cooking and to just kind of de-stress after work or after studying or whatever. It's just not okay, because you end up feeling like a slave to money and a slave to work. And on that note, let's talk about housing, because I would say it is quite different when you have parents that you can live with while working and save money that way, and when you don't have parents to live with and you have to pay rent no matter what. And the reality is that if you don't want to live with 4 other people and you have an average salary, at least half of your salary is going to go to rent and bills. And yes, some might say that it kind of balances out because groceries are rather affordable, but you're still not left with enough leeway to save money for a house, set something aside for emergencies, and have some freedom to have fun, you know? At least in my humble opinion, and struggles in London. And yes, of course, you can budget everything down to like the last little cent or pound or whatever. But is that really how I want to live my life? No, it is not. Also, for the money you're paying for rent and council tax is really flippin' expensive. But for the money you're paying for that, what do you get? Generally, you get mold and rotting wooden windows and disgusting carpets and trash on the street. Because the whole concept of you throwing away your trash only twice per week is absolutely disgusting. And then when you leave the trash outside and then the foxes come, because yes, London does not have stray cats and stray dogs, but it has foxes. When the foxes come in and they rip it all open, the streets are just disgusting. Now, when it comes to building relationships and building friendships, this is going to be a very brief point for me, because I didn't face any problems making friends in the UK. Some of my closest friends are British, and I love them to bits, but they all ended up leaving the UK, and they left before I did, which was honestly ridiculously frustrating and sad for me, but I'm also very happy for them. And yeah, if you're curious where they went to Japan. And I'm really looking forward to seeing them again. Anyway, that was it for me about friendships and relationships in the UK, because they left the country. They left me there. And anyway, I'm not there anymore. Of course, I can't talk about the UK without complaining about the weather, because I just generally need sunshine to function properly, okay? I don't mean it being warm outside. I'm okay if it's cold outside, because Bulgaria gets quite cold in the winter. But I need sunshine. The darkness and gloominess of London specifically did not bode well for my mental health. And I should have known that. I should have. I didn't think about it. The rain, not a problem. Got used to it. That's fine. But the gloominess was a bit too much for me. And I think those are the main reasons why I wanted to leave. And why I ended up leaving. Now, don't get me wrong. Please don't get me wrong. This video is not to say that there aren't good things in the UK. I love and am utterly grateful for the education I got. Also, the countryside is stunning. It's quiet, it's beautiful, it's generally safe. And the idea that I can just go on random walks through footpaths and not have to fear bears and boars and wolves, it felt weirdly refreshing. I mean, I was still nervous, like, because Bulgaria has a lot of wildlife, and when you go to the mountains, you always just kind of have to think and be careful, you know? You're always kind of on guard. So I couldn't really switch that off completely, but it still felt so freeing to be able to go on these walks in nature, right? Even though that means that the UK just killed off pretty much all of their natural hishnik. Oh no, English is dying. All of their natural predators. There you go. They kept the foxes. Why did you keep the foxes? Anyway, I also miss how genuinely kind people were in the countryside. Always greeting, saying hi, being helpful. It was lovely. Truly lovely. I miss how easy most administrative things were, mainly because people were generally kind and they wanted to help you. They were very polite, but also because you can do most of things online, which is great convenience. I also miss speaking English every day. I love the English language. Unfortunately, I barely work with English at my current job, so my English skills are kind of dying. I am trying to maintain them, but I really, really do miss daily communication in English. But most of all, I miss the bookstores and how affordable the books were in the UK. And that's not to say that books in Bulgaria are not affordable as well. Well, ish. They're affordable-ish if you want to read in Bulgarian. But I have kind of lost the ability to read. No, I have not lost the ability to read in Bulgarian, but I struggle with reading literature in Bulgarian because if it's originally written in English, I would rather read it in English when I speak the language, and I just love the structure of the English language and how it sounds, and I love reading it on paper, right? And because I spent 7 years reading an ungodly amount in English, not just for pleasure, but because of university and research, I just feel a lot more comfortable reading in English, and it feels a lot more natural to me to read in English than it is to read in Bulgarian. And while I am trying to read some books in Bulgarian, I just kind of can't get into them. So books in Bulgarian are affordable-ish, but books in English are stupidly expensive here because, they're imported. But nevertheless, I still buy lots of books and I'm still reading them, but I wish it wasn't as hard and as expensive. Now, with all of that said, I think at the end of the day, it all boils down to where I want to build a family. And the UK, I think it became a place that I no longer see myself doing that. I don't know, maybe because I lived in the university bubble for my first few years in England, and I just didn't see any of the stuff I saw and experienced in London. And I had maybe not a completely different, but I definitely had a different perspective on living in the UK and what it would be like and what type of life I can build in the country. And then once I was faced with the reality, I became really disappointed, and I started thinking more about other options. I can't objectively say if there has been a decline in the UK or not, but I can definitely say that my perception of the country changed a lot in the past few years. And I am much happier now that I am back in Bulgaria, which I can't believe I'm saying, because for a very long time I kept saying that I won't go back to Bulgaria because, we also have our problems. We definitely have a lot of problems. Mainly corruption. Like big capital letters, corruption. But I feel a lot more free here. I feel a lot more safe here, and I think safe is the key word for this whole video. I feel safe. Okay, I did not feel safe in the UK. And I don't know, that's about it from me. If you have also left the UK, or if you're thinking about the UK, or if you went back to the UK or whatever, you know, just feel free to leave your comments. If you want to judge me, you can judge me. I honestly don't care. We all have different lives and different experiences and different perceptions, and we are free to express them. Just, and this is a big thing, don't be offensive, right? Like, if I see bigoted comments, I'm going to delete them. I don't support stuff like that. If you want to be bigoted, just do it in a polite way, okay? I'm okay with that. Just don't be rude and offensive and outright racist or transphobic or whatever stuff you have going on in your head, okay? You can express your views and opinions, just please do them politely. Yeah? Okay. Okay, thank you for watching, and I hope that wherever you're watching from and whatever you're doing and whatever you want to get out of life, you are happy and you're safe and you're healthy. Bye bye.